Hey guys, it's Sheepy, and welcome back to another TF2 video. In the comments today, please leave me where you are watching this video, whether you're from the States or another country. Leave me where you're at. I love seeing what you guys think of these videos. It'd be just cool to see where you guys watch these videos from. And with that, I'm going to jump right into today's video, but I really love this channel, and I love that it's not really just my channel, it's a community. So if you want to hit me up, you can hit me up over Discord, Steam, Twitter. It's going to be cool, and I post a lot there, and I love to interact with you. But today we're talking about scamming, a particular form of scamming. But you all are pretty much familiar with scamming and how it works. You'll have a friend who gets a trust scam, or you'll get scammed, where you have an item that someone says, hey, let me verify it before we trade. It's a scam where you send it to a user, they'll verify it, but then they will block you, delete you, and you lost your item, or something like that. And it's honestly a horrible feeling, and it leaves a very, very bad taste in your mouth. Unfortunately, that's the natural reality of making good and bad trades. It will happen, but you'll get over it, you'll push on, and hopefully you'll be able to continue trading and make up what you lost. But what if there was a scam? What if there was something so big, it went way beyond a single scam, it went way beyond a group of scamming, it went way beyond connected scammers who are collaborating with each other? What if it was affecting the entire TF2 market? Now, you'd have to be thinking, well, Sheepy, what the heck is the TF2 market? It's essentially, I'm talking about the backbone, and the backbone is the TF2 key, which you can learn more and talk more about in the last video I made about the TF2 key. But, more importantly, it's the backbone of the economy because it's what everyone considers as currency, same with refined metal. So you have this whole entire idea of the key. So what was the issue here? What was the scam? Well, if you're familiar, there's this concept of laundering money. Now, laundering money is a very complicated process. What usually has to happen is you have money that you want to get rid of and make legitimate, so you go to a place. Let's say you go in real life, you go to a store, you buy a TV, you have a receipt, it's legitimatized, and then you sell that TV somewhere, so you launder the money, so you get whatever money you get out of the TV, it'll be less, but you get clean money that is now yours and hard to trace. And that's exactly what the idea of laundering money is. You have dirty money that's not yours, you legitimize it, and then you sell it to someone else, and then you basically get scot-off-free with money that might be less, but it's money that cannot be traced or is extremely difficult to trace directly to you. So what these people were doing, what these Russians were doing specifically, and this was a whole investigation done in 2012, what the Russians were doing was they had bought over 5,000 keys from the Manco store, and they were using illegitimate credit cards and were buying a few hundred buds from the TF2 outpost at ridiculous prices, and then selling the TF2 keys and buds and making a profit off of that and laundering the money that way. A very complicated process, but eventually they were doing this so much that the activity started to be noticeable. And there was this particular Steam rep user named Bay64, and I'll have this entire information in the description below. There is so much to comb through. It is so fascinating, and we'll get through most of it. But essentially what was happening is back in 2012, there was these Russians that were laundering money. And this is how they laundered money. What they would do is they would find, whatever money, the resources they would have, they would then transfer to wallet and Steam wallet funds. And then what they would do is they would buy games or, valuables in the games like unusuals or australiums, and then they would sell those in third-party places like marketplace.tf. You could do, a friend within the game or someone who would offer PayPal money, and they would then sell that product because if there was a chargeback from the bank account onto whatever you made, it was a virtual item, so it wouldn't get revoked because it has no quote-unquote loss. So it was a very smart way of laundering money, and it was a perfectly legal way, and it was very common before the Steam market was really introduced. But then when the Steam market was introduced, it was, it became just the common thing to do. Now they have some restrictions since 2012 because we're talking about 6 years, but that's exactly what was happening back then, and I imagine on some level something could happen today. In fact, that would be an interesting video to talk about how to launder items in TF2. That would be something very interesting to talk about. But essentially, this was going on. So what did Bay64 actually do? How did he catch them? He says, "It was a bright Sunday morning when I stumbled across an extremely abnormal behavior of prices of earbuds in terms of keys. I was making a regular look on the real-time chart of earbuds and I noticed two things. The simple moving average of 50 trades just suddenly jumped, and I'll have a graph, his graph, and then the volume of quality of buds traded within the 4 hours had quadrupled. So there was a huge amount of trading and a huge change in the market. Now, if you're unfamiliar, you're like, sheepy, buds are only worth 1.8 keys right now. Back then, they were worth way more keys. They were worth from, I believe, 20 to 80 keys, something around that range. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. I believe 30 keys is what we'll be talking specifically about today, but they fluctuated. They were insane, and that's a video I'm making actually very soon. It really just goes to show the gravity of what was really going on with buds being so expensive, buying and selling them, and making a profit, and having a successful system that was untraceable and unnoticeable for quite a long time. And I don't think if there weren't smart players like Base64 and other people that found out what was really going on and was really looking at the numbers, they would have never noticed, and they would have gone along far and far beyond. This is a very fascinating story. So how did they catch him? How did they catch him? Well, Base64 did a lot of research. What he went down? Back then they didn't have backpack.tf like resources and being able to use a very updated UI. It was very different. So he had to do a lot of the groundwork. He had to add people. He had to get in contact with people that were selling and buying inventories that were privated except to people that were friends with those privated inventories, because then you could see them. He got in touch with those people and made a lot of gathered of information, and finally found out that these people were having a certain amount of packages. Now, if you get a Manco store package, you usually are paying $20 per package. So having 14 to 17 packages meant they were spending at least $280 to $340 on keys on each account, because they were buying them in the Manco store, so that the game itself wouldn't find, or not the game itself, the Valve itself wouldn't find these key sales to be very suspect. Think about this. Think of how intricate they must have had to figure this out. All the involved accounts in this group, because there was a Steam group of these accounts, were created months. They were created months ago from this initial situation. The accounts were free to play, meaning they weren't the paid to play account verification. Back then there was no weapons or hats, meaning that these accounts were very suspect, because if no one's playing in those accounts, it's a little suspicious. They sometimes had open Manco packages, or they just give them away to the sellers, and they usually had no keys or buds left behind after these trades were done. So just like a drug house, it was cleaned up and done away with. The proven accounts never signed in at backpack.tf or TF2 outposts, but they would look for sellers there, and they would refer the several accounts within the groups that they were doing these scams in to each other's. So with this information, Base64 made a script where he said, the group has 65 members. This is like a math equation, the one time you'll ever use math. 65 members were in the group, 30 of which had public backpacks, of which 23 were premium, and of which 6 had keys left in them, and of which 6 had Manco packages left in them, and of which 7 were free-to-play accounts, and of which 35 had private backpacks. Interesting to point out. You can imagine the impact of this group if they inject thousands of keys into the market every week by suspicious means. So Base64 had hit several conclusions here, and additional remarks made by other people he found and corroborated with. He found such suspicious numbers that this really was no simple coincidence. It was something specifically happening with the item IDs. Now, being able to explain the item IDs would take a very long system, but essentially what happened, he was able to figure out which ones were new and legitimate and which ones were not so new and legitimate. So his theory was, how did the Russians manage to purchase vast amounts of keys from Valve regularly via fraudulent means? By getting new accounts? Would they wait for several months? They would definitely buy these keys at $2.40 from the store with stolen credit cards. And the whole point here is, when you buy the stolen item, because it's a virtual item, even though the chargeback can happen on the credit card, on the stolen credit card, the virtual item is left in the game because it's a virtual item. It's not an actual item. Like if you had a TV, it could get tracked, located, and then sold back to the original owner so that no one really lost money. However, still, because these are virtual items, they could just repeat this process and never really No, because Valve never deletes the injected keys. So this was ruining the market, and ultimately it really made a huge impact, and ultimately Valve found out what was going on, they cracked down, and Base64 was the leader of this investigation, at least in my opinion, and they had various news sources such as Polygon and other places cover the situation. I just figured, you know, it's something that was such a big scam, such a big thing that happened back in 2012. You guys have to know about it, because TF2 trading wasn't like it was today, and I feel like it's gone a lot, and it has gone very far since then. Anyway, I hope you found this as interesting as I did. I absolutely was just stunned at how deep this stuff went. The link to all of this information will be in the description below. If you want to hit me up, the links will be there as below. I'm on Discord, Twitter, Steam. You can find me. But yeah, let me know what you thought of this entire situation of laundering TF2 keys and money by the Russians. And I will talk to you guys very soon. Thanks so much for watching. I love your faces, and I will see you guys tomorrow.